Hello everyone, welcome to Oracle ERP Guru. Today we are going to talk about withholding tax. I'm going to explain the complete process step by step for your easy understanding. In Oracle ERP, when we talk about tax, there can be two different concepts I can say. One is transaction tax and the other one is withholding tax. Everybody know what is transaction tax, right? Whenever we buy a product, on that product there will be certain tax we have to pay to the government. So it's a burden for a customer, right? Let's say the product cost is like $10 and the tax is like $1. That $1 is a burden for the customer because we are paying it to the supplier. Similarly, withholding tax is a burden for supplier because whenever the supplier is doing a business at some country, he have to pay some amount to the government. But why it's called withholding taxes? Customer is supposed to take the money from the supplier and customer is going to pay to the government. For example, what is withholding tax? To withhold or deduct a certain portion of payment from a supplier or employee, whoever it is, and we pay it to the tax authority on behalf of that supplier or employee. For example, why I'm saying employees, when we are working in an IT company or any other company, what happens? Our employer deducts certain amount from our salary and they are paying it to the government. It's called like TDS, right? Tax deduction at source. So as a employee in any organization, our employer is deducting certain amount. That is also withholding tax. Similarly, when we talk about supplier, let's say my supplier is in India. I'm doing a business in United States. I want to import certain goods from Indian supplier. So Indian supplier is not a registered tax authority. Correct. So in this case, what happens? Indian supplier is not going to pay the tax to the United States government, that is IRS. So on behalf of that supplier, I am going to deduct certain portion of the amount and I will pay to the government. What I'm saying this example is $1,000 is the supplier invoice. Withholding tax is 10%. So I'm going to pay to the supplier is just $900 and I will pay $100 to the tax authority. That is nothing but the government. Okay. Withholding tax step by step process. So in this slide, let me tell you, there are 6 different steps you need to follow to configure the withholding tax. Step 1, create tax authority as a supplier, because when we are paying the tax or payment, whom we are paying it to the supplier. Similarly, when we are paying the withholding tax, to whom we have to pay? We have to pay it to the tax authority, right? So to pay it to the tax authority, we are creating a tax authority as a supplier so that we can make the payment to the tax authority. That is step 1. And step 2, we need to do the withholding tax option setups. So withholding tax can be created either for a standard invoice or a prepayment invoice. And what is the rate of tax we are going to calculate? Everything we are going to decide at this step. That is called step 2. And step 3, what we are going to do, we are going to define tax codes. Tax codes is going to say what is the code for that withholding tax. For example, for Florida, there can be different tax code, and California, it can be different tax code, etc. Right? So all the tax codes we are going to define at with step 3. And what is step 4? Step 4 is something we are going to create a tax group. So in this tax group or tax classification or whatever, in this step, we are going to attack this tax codes, all the tax codes, Florida, California, or whatever, all the tax codes, whatever we are creating, we are going to attach it here. And this will tie up with the business unit. I'll show you all the steps in a few minutes. And now we completed the withholding tax setups. And what we're going to do, this particular setup, the tax group we have to attach to the supplier. That is the case. That supplier will be tied up with the withholding tax. If you not attach the withholding tax to the supplier, then for this supplier there will not be any withholding tax will be calculated. Okay. And step 6. So this is the place where we are going to so far, like, withholding tax setup is done, totally configuration is done. So this step 5 and step 6 are additional steps to see the value how it is reflects in your system. Okay, so up to step 4 our withholding tax configuration is done. Step 5 and 6 are transactions creation steps. Okay, so step 6, we are creating an invoice, and that invoice is going to be a withholding tax supplier we are going to use, and that supplier is internally connected with this tax authority, and that's how this invoice is going to show you the withholding tax amount. Okay, just keep it as it is. Now let's see in the system how this works. Okay, I logged into the Oracle ERP. So step 1, what we have to do, we have to create a tax authority as a supplier. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to enter into the setup and maintenance, and I'm going to create a tax authority as a supplier. Oh, sorry. I'm going to log into the supplier setups. So let me go into the procurement, and I'm going to suppliers. So here I'm going to create a new supplier. Create supplier. And now I'm going to enter the supplier name as, let's say, Guru WHT supplier. Okay. So this is my, in real time, this is not a supplier. As I told you, this is nothing but a tax authority. Okay. In this case, I just put a WHT supplier. Okay. Now I have entered all the details and entered a click button. So now it has taken to profile, and here we are not going to enter at this moment. So only one setup is very important here. So what we have to do is we have to select this particular type as supplier type as tax authority. If it is a normal supplier, it can be either a blank or it can be selected as supplier. In this case, I'm going to select it as tax authority. Okay, that's it. Okay, so at this moment, this is enough. Let me go to the address setup. Here I'm going to select the create the address. I'm going to enter the address name. Let's say 111 Park, and country as the United States. Land city. I'm just giving okay. Okay, here something came, ordering, and Remito, I'm just keeping it as it is. And I'm going to click save. This setups and all right now not needed for address. These are all optional. Save and close. And I need to create site. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to next tab. I'm going to the sites and I'm going to create a new site. We already have the address and I'm keeping it as it is, purchasing and pay. Next, I'm going to, okay, we need to save so that all these tabs will get active. If you see, now the tabs got activated. Now let me go to invoicing and from here, from this setup, everything looks fine. So what I'm going to do, here, nothing as of now needed. So yeah, we can keep only US dollars. Okay, just keep it as it is. And we can move on to the payments. In this setup, we select check as the default payment method and save it as it is. Okay, we are good. And the rest other things and all, we can keep it as it is. And we can move on to the site assignments. So here, yeah, here we can add the assignment. We can select the client view and bill to view. In my case, I'm going to keep everything as my US1 business unit. Okay, this is enough. These setups and all, I'll explain you in the further slides. I mean, further setups. As of now, my setup is done. My withholding tax supplier has been created. Okay, so now we are done with the step 1. So step 2, what we have to do, let me go to the slide. So tax authority is done. So next we need to do the major setup. This is the withholding tax main setup. That's called manage tax and manage tax reporting and withholding tax options. So let me take this and let me go to the main setup and maintenance. And I'm going to select this option setup. So before entering into the slides, I'll tell you, I'll show you the other setups also. So in this financial, we have to see the transaction tax. We have managed tax is there, tax regime is there. All the setups we have to do, but instead of going one by one, what we can do is we can go to this particular setup. So for any tax setup, tax regimes and the taxes or main setups we have to create. But all, these setups and all we can create within this setup itself. So that's the reason I selected this setup. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the business unit as US1 so that it will tied up. US1 business unit. Okay, I'm going to select this. Okay, I selected this setup now. So here what we have to do is, so already they have few setups, right? Let me disable it and show you the new setup. Okay, what I'm going to do, as I told you, withholding tax can be done for two different invoices, either a standard invoices or prepayment invoices, right? For our session, I'm going to do for standard invoices. Here, the important concept here is at what time your withholding tax should be calculated, while creating the invoices time or the payment time, right? I'm going to do it for the invoice level itself. Okay. And the date, I'm going to keep the start date as today's date. Okay. So we are done with this particular setup. Okay. Let me save this. Okay, so this is totally an independent setup. We told that this configuration going to work for the US1 business unit. This is done. So what is the next step? Let me go to the slide. So the step 3 is we need to go to this manage tax codes. Let me go to the manage tax codes. So this is the place we are going to define the rates. Okay, the US1 business unit. Now what happens? My US1 business unit totally tied up with this particular withholding setup. Country United States, and tax regime code. So as I told you, the regime is very important. I'm going to click create. I'm going to set as Guru WHT 10 percentage. That is 10 is the code. Sorry. And again, I'm going to keep this. This is just a free text. So I'm just entering as it is. There's some unique value we need. That's it. So this is also completed. So next what we have to do, we need to create the tax codes. I mean, ideally tax regime and tax code is the basic setups we need to do. So here I'm going to create a tax code now. Guru WHT tax. So for a unique naming purpose, I'm going to I'm going to add, okay. And start date as 16. Tax liability. So this is the account. All your remitted amount is going to track. For example, if total $50,000 I'm supposed to pay to the IRS government, all the amount is trackable under tax liability account. I'm going to take any liability account for testing purpose. That's it. We are done. So this is the one I was saying, tax authority. That is nothing but your government, right? So I added Guru WHT supplier, which we created in the previous steps. What we created in the initial step before this, I got it here. Okay. Okay. So this is done, and the site I'm going to attach as my address. So I hope everyone remember this setups, right? This is the one, the tax, just a tax code, and this is the one we created in the initial supplier setup. This supplier attached here. So hope no one got confused. This particular tax authority is now tied up with this particular code. This particular code is tied up with this particular supplier. Okay, this is nothing but the tax authority, not a supplier. And yeah, we are good. Let's save this. Okay, so now step 3 is also completed. So what do we need next? We need withholding tax group or the tax classification setup. Okay, let's move on to, let's save and close. Oh, sorry, we need to define the tax rate code. That is nothing but, okay, some code we need. And we need to create the rate. So this is the one ideally going to say what is the percentage my invoice is going to calculate. Okay. And effective start date 16. And this is my ledger and this is my tax liability account. Okay. Now everything has been calculated. So now my invoice is going to say 10 percentage is that percentage I'm going to pay to the IRS government for a specific supplier where this particular code, where this withholding tax is going to tie up. I'll show you how it is going to tie up in the next slide. Next setup. I'm going to save. So now what we need this setup, right? Let me go to the again setup and maintenance, this setup itself. Let me query this with manage withholding tax classifications. I'm going to this setup. I'm going to create a new code. Guru WHT group. Okay, this is done. And start date as today's date and direct tax rule. So now we are going to tie business unit, which particular business unit this code is going to use for. I'm going to say US1 business unit. In case if I have 5 different business units, everything I can tie up with here so that all the business unit will be will use this particular percentage. Sorry, this particular withholding tax group calculations will be applied. And tax rate code, that's it. All the setup, whatever we created in the past, here, everything is connected now, one by one, right? So that's it. We are good with this particular setup. Let me save this. So we are done with complete withholding tax setup. Now what do we need? We need to create a we need to create a supplier, and that supplier needs to assign with this withholding tax group, so that whenever we create an invoice with this supplier, for example, supplier is an Amazon. This particular withholding tax is attached with Amazon. Whenever I create an invoice with Amazon as a supplier, then automatically my withholding tax is calculated. Let me show you. Let me go to the supplier setup, procurement, suppliers. Let me take any supplier. And let me go to profile. Let me go to income tax. In this place, I'm going to enable the withholding tax, and I'm going to tie up the tax group. That's it. We are done with step one of the setup in this area. Let me save this. So here, profile and site level, both we need to do. Unless you do profile level setup, site will not show this option at all. I'm going to the site level, and here I'm going to tie up with my withholding tax group. That's it. We are totally done with the withholding tax setup along with the supplier. Okay. So till this part, my withholding tax is completed, and till this setup, my supplier is connected with the withholding tax configuration that has been tied up with. Okay, let's go on and create an invoice, and let's see how the withholding tax is working, right? Let me go to the invoice creation process so that we can quickly test whether our setup is working correct or not. Let me go into the invoices. Okay, I'm going to payables, I'm going to invoices. Let me create a new invoice. Okay, now my primary requirement is the invoice, whatever I am accessing, it's supposed to be a US1 business unit. And what is the other criteria? The supplier, whatever I'm going to use, that's supposed to be a withholding enabled supplier. Okay, that is the two main criteria I'm going to use for this invoice. So now we know this particular supplier is already tied up with the withholding tax. Let's see whether it's working or not. Okay. supplier side, everything is selected, and let me give the Guru INV1, and the amount is, let's say, $25,000 as the amount, and line level. If you see that there are two different taxes, right? One is transaction tax and the other one is withholding tax. Okay, let me enter the amount as 25,000 and distribution set. Let me choose anything one. Okay, let me save and validate. If the validation is perfectly passed, then the withholding tax will be automatically get computed. Let's see my validation success or not. If any issue with my withholding tax configuration, then it won't calculate the withholding tax. I'm just checking the whole reasons. I'm going to validate again. Okay, sorry, I need to change my header amount because the transaction tax already calculated. Let me put this amount 27,375. Okay, this is done. Let me save and let me revalidate. Once the validation is success, the withholding tax supposed to calculate for the above amount. If you see that the my withholding tax is calculated 2,737.50. That's it. We are done with this withholding tax configuration setup. Let me show you how it reflects in the primary invoice setup also. Let me go to setup and maintenance. As I told you in the very beginning, when it's enough, like you can start the setup with this particular withholding tax options. You don't need to do the tax regimes or tax manage tax and all. But now we can see these setups is reflected here and here as well. For example, if I go here, let me change the scope. Scope is supposed to be my Guru tax, right? I need to say, as I told you, the tax setup is ideally divided into transaction tax and withholding tax. What I need withholding tax, right? Let me go and check whether my setup is reflected or not. Guru. Okay, did you see that? My setup is reflected. So it means automatically my tax regime is calculated. Let me select this setup and let me go to the main area. Okay, and now okay, this is the setup whatever we did in the previous the other setup, withholding tax options and manage tax codes, tax group, whatever we created, the tax group, everything is reflected here. If you see that this is the tax code we created and this is the tax names and the tax regime code, whatever we did, everything is reflected under the tax. So that is how the tax setup is tied up with these setups and all. If you query for tax regime also, you should see that our setup Guru. Let's see here also the setup is reflected or not. Okay, we are into the transaction tax. That's why it didn't come. Let me select the withholding tax and let me put the tax group name. Sorry, tax regime name. See, all the setup is reflected into the main setups as well. Tax regimes and tax managed tax. Okay, now what is the purpose of this invoice creation? So when I created an invoice for a withholding tax supplier, what is our ultimate requirement? Our ultimate requirement is we need to pay the money to the withholded amount to the IRS government, right? But did we create any other invoice for the IRS government? No. But this particular invoice will automatically create one more invoice. For example, let me select the date as today's date. Let's see. And business unit as US1 business unit. And okay, supplier, not going to enter. Let me see how many invoices created for today's date. Did you see? Guru underscore INV1 is the one we created. How did this one came? This one came because of this supplier is a withholding, Advance Corp is a withholding tax supplier, and this supplier is that nothing but a, the withholding tax supplier, and that withholding supplier is nothing but a tax authority, right? This particular supplier is nothing but a tax authority. Now, as soon as you create and validate a Guru's invoice, Advance Corp's invoice, automatically one more invoice will get created, and this invoice is also ready for the payment. So once it is validated and approved, when you're running the payment process request, automatically both the invoice will get paid, and depend upon the suppliers or suppliers, it will be paid independently to the supplier. He will get 24,637, and IRS will get 2,737.50 US dollars. So this is how withholding tax is working. Hope everyone clear about this concept. If anyone have any questions or any concerns, please post your comments on this video so I can help you and I can clarify your doubts. If everybody likes this session, please like this video and subscribe this channel so that I can share you more contents in the upcoming sessions. Thank you very much. See you on another interesting session.